Capital I now?
Yeah, okay. And I'll follow the instructions here.
I fuzzy white noise. Anyone else?
Can you all see the presentation?
I
I
can.
can.
Looks good to me.
Hello?
Have we started streaming, Tyron?
Yes. Yes, we began.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is the time scheduled for a virtual technical conference in docket number 21-057-01, Dominion Energy Utah's Integrated Resource Plan for plan year June 1st, 2021 to May 31st, 2022. My name is Jacob Richardson, and I am the PSC's facilitator for this conference. For the benefit of all who are participating in this technical conference, we ask that if you are not speaking, that you please mute your connection. We'll turn the time now to Mr. Mendenhall and Dominion Energy. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to pass it to Mr. Will Schwarzenbach, who's our manager of gas supply, who will be leading the discussion.
Hi, everyone. Good day. It's good to talk to you all again. So what we're going to do today is we're going to kind of recap the entire IRP that we filed a couple of weeks ago. I'm going to start off by just reminding everybody of the technical conferences that we've already had. So on February 9th, we had one. We talked about a number of issues, the standards and guidelines from that kind of...
Oh, can everyone still hear me?
Yep.
You sound good to
Okay.
me.
All right. I had a voice interrupt it and tell me that it's being streamed, so I just want to make sure we were still good. Okay, we reviewed the 2020 IRP order, the March 2020 stakeholder meeting. We talked about rural expansion, LNG update, and a little bit about hedging. That hedging conversation is still ongoing. On April 28th, we met. We went over the heating season review, talked about system integrity, and also confidentially talked about some Wexpro matters and some RFP review. On May 18th, we had our third and final technical conference before the IRP was filed. And there we talked about some specific IRP project details, some long-term planning, the hydrogen pilot, and the future STEP, the STEP project. So that kind of brings us to where we are today, where we filed it, and hopefully you all have had some chance to at least initially review it. I'm sure it was high on your list of things to do in reading it, and I'm sure you all enjoyed it thoroughly as much as I do, all multiple times that I read over it. But hopefully you've come with some questions. What we've done in the past, and I think we started to simplify things a little bit, is I've got a presentation here of just really a highlight kind of thing from each section. And we've also asked all of the subject matter experts to be on the call today. and to be able to answer any questions. And you know, there's always one or two questions that we don't know the answer to right off the bat, but we can get back to you with those. We'll try and answer everything right here. So feel free to ask any questions, and hopefully we'll have a good dialogue. I've tried to identify on the slide who the subject matter experts are, and in some cases they were not able to be here and they've sent a surrogate. As on this first slide, you see Maddie Haynes does all of our modeling. Unfortunately, she was not able to be here, so I will have to fill in as the quote unquote subject matter expert on the modeling stuff. So the first section in the IRP is an industry overview. This is really just to give any regulatory updates such as FERC type updates. Also discussion of trends that are going on in the industry, pricing, production, storage, LNG export, sustainability. We also use this section to review kind of where we're at with the IRP process in both Utah and Wyoming, and what steps we've taken through that process. So I guess I'll pause here and see if there are any specific questions on the industry overview. All right, hearing none, we'll move on and talk about the customer and gas demand forecast section. This is one where we talk about customer growth and the forecast models. What I show here is our slide of our design peak day forecast. So our expected peak day or design day for the 2021-22 heating season is expected to be about 1.229 million decatherms, so 1.23 million decatherms. You can see the graph here, just to remind everybody what this graph shows is the green and yellow bars indicate the actual highest send-out day each year historically for the past 5 years. And then the blue and red bars indicate both sales and transportation, the expected peak day forecast going forward. So that's why you see there's a big step up. One is assuming peak day conditions, so -5 degrees. The other is actual what we experienced on those days. So I believe Dave Landward is on this call if there are any questions on this section. All right. We'll move on to the system capabilities and constraints section. So this is the section that really talks about all of our system planning models that Adam Del Toro his group is responsible for. And I believe we have Adam here on the call today if there's any questions. But some of the highlights here is, you know, we do the analysis and state that the feeder line systems have adequate capacity to meet the average daily and peak hourly demands, and that our supply contracts are adequate. So they match their models with the contracts and make sure we have all the gas that we need planned to come in where we need it. They have identified some projects that'll be talked about in the next section that will have to be completed going forward. So there's a feeder line 135. That's the continuation of the efforts down in the St. George area with the central 20-inch looping project. There's also a high pressure regulator station in Linden, feeder line 13 east and west high pressure stations, and the Saratoga gate station. There's some upgrades there, and that is the one that feeds the Saratoga area, but also the Lakeside Power Plant. And then we also discuss in here long-term planning. So while we're here, are there any questions on this section?
Yeah, this is Eric Orton. I have a question on the supply contracts.
Okay.
When it says they're adequate, does that include the spot purchases that are not really contracted for yet that you expect to buy during the heating season? Or
They do. So mainly when they match those up, they match it with our transportation capacity because they're only modeling the basically the distribution side of things. And Adam can go into this more, but since it's a supply question, I'll take the first shot at it. But the way I believe they match it is with all of our transportation contracts, assuming that we'll be able to get the supply to meet all of or to fill all those transportation contracts. And then we look at it and assume or study and make sure that we're going to have those contracts lined up to the right receipt points and that we're comfortable that we can buy that supply. That doesn't mean that it's guaranteed. That doesn't mean it'll definitely show up. It just means that that we feel comfortable that based on how those contracts are lined up, that we have access to the supply that's there. So that's what we mean. It does include spot purchases. Yes, it's assuming
Okay.
that we're going to be able to buy the spot gas that we need. Adam, did you have anything else or did I cover it?
I think that was pretty well covered. Yeah, we're assuming the gas makes it to our, for these transport customers, it makes it to our receipt points, and then we can deliver it onto our system, and that's what we mean by adequate.
I see. It's just a little confusing to me when it says supply contracts. I thought that was production supply or the commodity.
Right. It's a combination of the commodity, assuming that our transportation capacity is going to get us to adequate supply to meet the model's needs.
Gotcha. Thanks.
Any other? I don't think in Google Meet do we have the opportunity to raise hands or anything like that. I don't know that. I'm trying to look to see if there's signs of a hand raised or anything. Commissioner LeVar just raised his hand. So apparently we can raise our hands in here.
I don't have a question. I was just showing you that you can do it.
Well, I appreciate that. No, that was good. Thank you. Okay, so I'll keep an eye out for those hands raised, and we'll go to the next slide. So this one we did cover in a previous technical conference, but this is really the distribution action plan section outlines all of the projects that we have planned and when they're planned and alternatives for them and estimated costs and revenue requirement. What you're seeing here is just the first slide associated with this really just outlines some of those projects, what they are. This is the high pressure projects. If we go to the next slide, that'll show your other projects such as feeder line replacement, rural expansion, plant projects being, the LNG facility, intermediate high pressure projects, talking about the belt main, the aging infrastructure replacement. And then we did announce the completion of the transponder replacement program. So while we have this up, are there any questions on the distribution action plan section?
This is Eric. I have a question.
Go ahead.
On the thanks. On the Eureka expansion, so it looks like Fugle is going to do that whole project in 4 months. Is that right? From the end of June to the end of October? They have it on track for the heating season? That's a pretty big project, it seems like, for 4 months.
That is correct. So they do have different crews, right, for the IHP and the high pressure. So, and Fugle is a large company, and so they've already put in several thousand feet of IHP, and they're well on their way on the high pressure main. The gate station was recently bid out, and that's going to another contractor. It's not Fugle. So there is some additional support there on that side. But no, everything that we're seeing right now is, yeah, they're on track. And it's partially because they have so many available crews.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks, Jason. Any other questions? All right, we'll go to the next section, which is the integrity management section. And again, this is Richard covered this, I believe, in one of the earlier technical conferences. But what I show here is just some of the highlights of miles assessed and anomalies repaired, and basically footage that was worked on. The one key point is that the mega rule was published in October of 2019, so there's some highlighted time frames and stuff and requirements associated with that we outlined. But are there any questions for Richard on this section? All right. Hearing none, we'll move on to our environmental review. This section is really dedicated to talking about our compliance with environmental laws and regulations. We talk a little bit about our conservation efforts. Sorry, but we go on and elaborate more in terms of our sustainability section and also our energy efficiency section. But some of the key points here is that those conservation efforts have resulted in savings of more than 1.2 million decatherms of natural gas in 2020. So that's an equivalent of about 14,000 passenger cars. And the lifetime savings attributed to therm-wise programs is about equivalent to 106 passenger vehicles driven for a year. So if you think about that in terms of savings, that's quite a bit. So I'm pretty proud of those. And we also kind of point out here and again in other places that we're committed to achieving net zero greenhouse gas emissions by 2050. And some of those programs are outlined in the sustainability. But I believe we have Glenn Johnson on the call for us to answer any environmental questions if there are any. All right. Moving on to the next is our purchased gas section. And this, we talk about our balanced portfolio of gas purchases, approximately 60 million decatherms of gas that we will be planning to buy for next year based on normal temperatures. We are continuing to work on increasing, or at least the idea is that we want to increase some of our hedges to cover those coldest days in December, January, February. We're continuing to work on that. And then some of our historical heating season pricing, if we look back and compare from, the 1920 heating season to 2019 to 2020, that kind of came out wrong that it was the 1920s. I'm not that old. But the 2019, 2020, the 2020 to 2021, so you can see that the difference in general was a rise in prices from one year to the other. Okay. Any questions on the purchase gas section?
This is Eric. I have a question on the hedges. Are you talking financial price hedges, or are you talking supply hedging?
Well, it's kind of a combination of both, right? Where when we talk about hedging, we do talk about supply. So we're looking at some additional fixed price baseload type gas for, December, January, February. So it does a couple of things. One is it provides us reliability supply so that we know we'll have that supply kind of locked up at a price that's fixed already, and it provides us some coverage, reduces our exposure to daily pricing. So we're looking at a number of different options to accomplish both those goals.
So you're looking more at fixed prices with producers or suppliers rather than financial fixing of costs, caps, and that kind of stuff.
Right. So one of the problems we found with just getting a financial derivative or something that's going to offset the pricing is a lot of those are based more on like a Henry Hub type NYMEX pricing, which is going to cover you for the general rise in prices. But if there's a very geographically specific rise in price, like we saw in February, the indexes weren't really tied together at that point. Like if you looked at what Henry Hub did in February, you wouldn't see anywhere near the increase that we saw. So when we want to get some price and supply, I guess don't know what the right word is, but confidence in having each of those, be at a reasonable price and available. I think we want to look more at products that are going to physically have the gas in this area and are going to be priced at our indexes. I think that's our best bet going forward.
Thanks.
Does that answer your question, Eric?
It does.
All right. Any other questions on the purchase gas section?
All my bookmarks,
I haven't seen that before, so I don't
Okay.
think any other-
Cost of service.
Of course, you're talking about that
So
yellow
in this, we talk about, this is our
all my
Wexpro, and
browsers and my-
we talk about what Wexpro is doing. We give a little history on Wexpro, but mainly we focus on the level of production that we see, and for this heating season, it looks like about 58.4 million decatherms that we'll see, or
Yeah.
not the heating season, but for the year, sorry, which comes out to about, let's call it 50% of the forecasted demand for the year. And that number should represent, or at least it should, everyone should recognize it as a decline. So we are still seeing declines in the production, which that percentage keeps going down. It was a little bit higher than that last year. So we are declining there.
Yeah, I want to see if
That said,
Oh, see,
we
yeah,
also
they do.
talk about for calendar
It's
year
only open on
2020
one
the
window,
the
but
drilling
doesn't
plans.
show.
Wexpro does plan to drill 11.3 net wells. I always ask what a 0.3 net well would look like, but really what it just means is it has to do with sharing in that well and how much of the gas we actually get. But and then the focus there will be on Trail and Vermilion,
Probably on toolbars where you can hide it.
and then
Yeah.
also outline the drilling
I would worry
plans
about it
for
now.
2022 through 2025 with 15,
Yeah.
17, 19, and 18
Yeah.
wells respectively. So
They're staring at
the
that.
thought there is that with forward prices
Something like
starting
this,
to
okay,
go
okay.
up, we'll be able to expand the drilling there a little bit.
Right.
We'll be able to see that savings then from our Wexpro production. Any questions on the cost of service section? All right. This section's near and dear to my heart, the gathering, transportation, and storage section. In this, we kind of outline all of our transportation contracts, our obviously gathering, transportation, and storage contracts. But some highlights from there are we did sign a new contract with Overthrust Pipeline, and that was what was available was 8,542 decatherms of capacity. What that does is it doesn't necessarily add capacity to the Wasatch Front. What it does is extend the path of some of our existing capacity. So we have capacity on Questar Pipeline that brings gas in at Whitney Canyon is the area, and we've been a little bit constrained in terms of the liquidity of gas that's being sold at that point. So this contract, what it does is allows us to actually, instead of just buying it at that one point, kind of move back to a more liquid point. So for at least 8,500 of that capacity, we now have the opportunity to buy it at a more liquid point that's further west and then transport it on that contract into our other contract. So it's really just an extension of that. Another thing that you see on all of these, our transportation, our firm peaking, and our storage, is that there were some extensions that were negotiated as part of the BHE transaction, but none of those have taken effect yet because that transaction has not yet closed. So I'll leave it at that. I think until it closes, we don't have much more information on that. Firm peaking services, we are still continuing to go with both Kern River and Questar Pipeline firm peaking services, and we want to continue those going forward. I think Bela, I saw a little notice that your hand came up.
Yeah, I was going to ask about the contract extensions with Berkshire Hathaway. I don't know if you can talk about those, or would those be at the same terms that we already have? How has the sale of that company affected pricing and other contract terms, or has it?
So I don't want to go into a lot of detail, but let's just say they're at the same or better terms than we have right now. That's about where they're at. Those extensions give us options. That's our option to either continue them or end them. So it's kind of gives us the option to do that, and it would continue them at the same rates. Some of those contracts are also at kind of locked in rates instead of just being at a, whatever the max rate goes up to. They're set at kind of what the rate is right now. And even if that max rate goes up, some of those contracts will then stay at that same rate. So I think we're in better position, which is why we negotiated those contracts. It kind of gives us options going forward without and reduces our risk of the contracts really going up.
Well, that's good to hear. Thanks.
Any other questions on this section? All right. The next section is the supply reliability section. This was in there a couple years ago, and we took it out last year, and it is back by popular demand. So this kind of just briefly outline, our supply reliability concerns that we've had and what we're currently doing to address it, which is the LNG facility. If we do have any additional concerns going forward, this would be the section that you'll see those in. But right now we're really focused on just getting that first step of the LNG facility in. Gave you some highlights as to the construction, which started in July of 2020. The tank roof was raised in May, and I think some of you got to virtually experience that. The inner cryogenic wall is expected to be completed in March of 2022. Ground improvements have begun with completion in August of this year. Some foundation work and equipment should be completed by December. And the main pipe rack to begin construction July and expected completion of August. And really all the buildings are expected to be completed in March of 2022.
I would add it's expected to be functional and working by fourth quarter of 2022 in service.
Thank you for that.
When you say that, do you mean that it'll be in operation both directions? I assume you'll be filling it before that, or do you mean you'll start filling it then?
Both. It'll both be in service, and we'll start filling it in fourth quarter of 2022.
Okay, so there's no real ramp up period where you're filling it, but not in air quotes using it or something.
Right. Yeah, it'll basically be fully functional, and then we'll just have to start filling.
Great.
All right. Any other questions on this section? All right, going forward, sustainability. This we provided some update on, in general what Dominion as a whole, our goals and what we're doing, but really we focused on what we're doing here in the West. So Dominion Energy, Utah, Wyoming, and Idaho, what our initiatives are. And those include our methane reduction program, sustainability legislation, what we're doing for sustainability of supply. We talked a little bit about responsibly sourced natural gas, renewable natural gas, carbon offset program, our hydrogen pilot program. And then we even went in to expand and tell you a little bit about Wexpro's sustainability initiatives as well. So quite a bit of work going on in this field right now. So are there any questions on our sustainability section? we talk about our energy efficiency programs. So we provided the results from 2020. We provided our expectations for the 2021 programs, and kind of outline everything that's being done with Thermwise. And I believe Mike Orton should be here if there's any questions for him on this. All right. Moving forward, our next one is just the final model results, and this graph here kind of we used to call it the birthday cake. I just call it our supply portfolio graph, but this is how we plan to meet a day. There's that 1.223 peak day that we talked about before, or 1.23, sorry. And that is met through, spot gas, cost of service, production, aquifer, clay basin, base load purchases, and also peaking purchases. So, and we've run it through the send out model, and based on what we provide the model and tell it, where there's available gas and what we expect to be available, the model feels that we can meet that peak day demand on this supply portfolio. There's a whole lot of graphs in the final modeling results, but we're only showing one here. But if there's any questions on any of them, let me know, and I'll.
Well, how long could we meet the peak day? 2 days, a week, 2.5 years?
I would say, the first thing that's gonna happen is the aquifers will reduce. So that's at least 3 days, right, before we start reducing some of that withdrawals from the aquifers. Then it's just a matter of whether or not there's additional spot gas availability. So I would, if I had to call it right now, Eric, I would say at least 3 days. And then from there we would have it's not like it just drops off and all of a sudden we don't have any more gas. We would just be scrambling a little bit more on those subsequent days.
Okay, thanks.
And with the LNG facility coming online, that'll be another tool that you could use, right?
Right. Yeah. If it lasted longer than that, and or gas didn't show up or something like that, we do have our reliability there of 150,000 decatherms. So. Okay. Is there any other questions on this? I think that might be the last one. I guess you've gone pretty easy on me, but are there any general questions or overview questions on the entire document while we have everybody here? I mean, if we don't get any questions, this could be a record if I've managed to go through this many slides in 32 minutes. That's
right. There was a day when it took Will 40 minutes to go through one slide. So yeah, I don't think anyone's sad about the speed of your presentation, though.
It only seems fitting that Will should have both records.
That's a good point.
Thanks, Michelle.
I was going to say maybe we learned our lesson.
Don't ask Will questions because he'll take a really long time answering it. Is that what we've learned here?
That's why I keep getting all those emails. Stop asking Will questions. That's why.
Well,
we appreciate the questions, Eric.
No, we do. I like it. All right. Well, I don't have anything else. If we don't have any other questions, that's all I've got.
Yeah, if there's no other questions, we'll go ahead and conclude the conference. Thank you, everyone, for coming.
Thanks.
Thanks, everyone.